Nancy Cahern. We are members of the Education Committee of the Nonpartisan Citizens for a Responsible Government Group. We do not donate to or endorse any candidates. We have a few questions for you, and if you have no objection, we'll record the interview. We want to let you know that the questions are the same for anyone running for an elected position with the exception of the county clerk position. The transcript will be published in the Sneak Preview and the Daily Courier. Do you have any objections or questions?
No.
If not, we'll proceed with the interview. For the record, please state your name and the position you're running for.
Yep, my name is Seth Benham. I am running for Oregon State Representative for House District 3.
All right. What are the requirements for the position you're seeking?
Requirements for the position I'm seeking, obviously to represent House District 3 in the Salem, Oregon for session. Set laws, make legislation, pass bills, represent the community, like I said. I think that's a really important piece of this. Represent our district and our needs locally. Also, on a statewide level as well, right? Working with the other House members to pass bills and create policy.
Okay.
Do you have any experience and or education that could apply to the position that you're seeking?
Yeah. So I have been a business owner for 12 years. I own a marketing agency. So I've been doing that since I graduated high school in 2014. And, that comes obviously with a lot of learning and a lot of knowledge of, operating a business. I've had the luxury of working in the larger sector of companies, so more corporate facing companies, working with CEOs, marketing directors, things like that, working with companies locally as well as nationwide, having opportunity to kind of navigate politics in that sense when you're working with different size companies and just different people with different thoughts and ideas. Obviously we have a small team as well, so managing people, managing employees, having to navigate that obviously brings experience to a position like this where obviously there's constituents that you have to talk to, you have to engage with. So that's obviously one, and one of my biggest ones. I've also been the director of Main Street Grants Pass, or the board president for the last 2 years, helped found the organization. So I have some experience there now in kind of that nonprofit side of the world, forming a board and working collectively to make decisions to benefit the community. And then obviously, city council for the last year, working with the rest of the council on tough decisions that we've had to face in Grants Pass for the last year. So collectively, even though I'm only 30, I guess I will say, collectively, I've been able to acquire a lot of knowledge and experience, in the last 12 years or so, that I think will benefit me in a position like this, that have benefited me on city council. And I'm also learning every day, right? Try to learn new skills and, listen to the people and see what they think.
Okay. Is there a current conflict? Wait a minute. Back up here.
I think you can go right ahead.
If there's a current conflict possibility, is there a current conflict possibility and how could it be resolved?
Are you talking about
for example, a business you own, anything like that? Mm-hmm.
Conflict with
being the state representative?
I don't think there's a conflict. My business stays again, like I said, kind of the luxury of working a little bit local, but also, outside of the state. And my industry is marketing. So, doesn't really tie directly into some of the policy making we would have to be doing. Obviously it could cross over at some point, but as far as conflict of interest, I'd say most likely not. Obviously city council, that's a little different, but my seat would be up. My seat's already up at the end of this year, so I would have to rerun for that again anyways. So at the same time as taking office for this, it would be leaving city council. Mm-hmm. And then, Main Street is, it's just board seat. So.
All right. What do you believe are the most relevant issues currently facing the county or the state right now? What would be your 6-month plan to tackle these issues?
Yeah, I think I think these issues are things that we're facing here in the district and in the county, but also they're statewide issues as well. So number one is supporting businesses of all sizes in Jefferson County. We've obviously lost some in the last couple of years, some larger. It's unfortunate. So those are issues that take away. Losing companies obviously hurts the economy. It takes away jobs. So that is one of my number one priorities. I'll go through them all and then we can kind of talk about 6 months. But so supporting business. Second, creating less friction to develop single family housing market rate, and bringing more development, spurring more development in the county and the city. Obviously we have strict city limits and UGB boundaries in the state altogether, but we need to figure out ways to increase that, ideally to hopefully bring costs down for especially new young families that may not be able to afford current prices, and just more inventory, because we lack that right now. And then thirdly is public safety and community standards, with a big emphasis on the homeless crisis that we are dealing with in Grants Pass and Jefferson County and across the state. That is an issue that I've dealt with on council for the last year, and one that we're just trying to make the right steps forward. So if I get elected to the position, obviously you go straight into the long session, and so working on legislation that'll affect all three of those is going to be super important. As far as supporting business, I think we need to take a look at where we stand with taxes on larger corporations within Oregon. We also need to think of incentives for starting small businesses, and how we can get them off the ground. Whether that's some kind of tax break for your first few years or down that line, right? I think the tax burden is huge on small businesses in Oregon and just any size business really. And then housing. It's really looking at the permitting timelines, I think, for certain projects, how we can incentivize market rate housing. We do a great job incentivizing low income, and that's definitely a section of the public and people that live, down here. But I think the market rate is something that we need to think about, and how we can work on making, easing up regulations for developers, obviously within the UGB, but also outside, in the county. Areas like that. And then, the public safety and community standards, again, House Bill 3115 has been a big issue. That's going into this session right now. They're trying to repeal that. Ultimately, repealing that would be ideal, but if not possible, I think reform is needed for that legislation to give more power back to the individual communities and districts, because one size doesn't really fit all when it comes to that. But with that, the homeless crisis that we're currently in, we need to have compassion, but we also need to have accountability. We need to figure out how to bring those two together, to hopefully progress in a better direction as a state and as a community. So, again, first 6 months, those are the top three issues in my mind. And again, I think too, bringing some dollars back to the district to help fund certain projects, infrastructure projects, things that we've missed out on in the past is super important as well.
Mm-hmm.
How will you interact with other elected officials, state, county, and city, to achieve positive results, even if you disagree with their positions?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this has been a big one. I got on council, and I've realized there's a gap in communication, whether that's between city and county or city and state, county, state, it doesn't matter, right? There's definitely some lack of communication in those areas. So, and I believe strongly, it starts from the top down, right? So we need somebody at the state level that will be willing to communicate with the county, with the city officials. And again, depending, whatever side of the aisle you're on, I think it's still important, right? We may disagree. I may disagree with people on council right now. But, at the end of the day, we have a job to do. We got to make decisions. They're not going to be easy. But we need to have the openness to sit down at least and listen. I think that's one thing that we may miss right now is sitting down with somebody that disagrees or in opposition and just at least listening to what they have to say. Because I don't think also if you don't allow that to happen, there's no chance of trying to get any movement in any direction, in my opinion, right? Whether it's towards maybe something I favor, and trying to persuade somebody to, okay, maybe this is the right direction. So I think sitting down, listening is huge. That goes not only just with elected officials, but the people too, right? Constituents, people that don't always agree or think, different. But yeah, the top-down communication, right? Creating a channel from the state all the way down to the city level. I can see in my current position a breakdown of that as it stands right now. So.
How will you learn what is important to the citizens of Josephine County, and how will you communicate with them? Conversely, how do you prefer them to contact and or communicate with you?
Yeah, I think this is an area that I like to say I'm pretty good at. I'm involved on a daily basis in the community. I may not be at all the things, but I try to be engaged on multiple levels, whether that's with the Main Street program or chambers or just different events, different organizations. So that's one way I like to connect with people and hear about what's going on in the community. I try to have an open door. Obviously we've got limited time in the day, but I try to, meet with as many people as I can. And so that's really important to me. I think, having more open, whether it's, town hall style or just updates, legislative updates, things like that, that's open to everyone, would be beneficial going forward. And as far as reaching out to me, I'll say, really anyway, right? Social media, that's another way that I'm younger, so getting the information out on social media is huge. But reaching out to me, social media, email, my website, any of those forms, all my contact information is available on there, and people can reach out with questions or concerns.
Okay.
By the way, if a debate were arranged, would you be willing to participate?
Yes.
Great. Now, is there anything else you would like to tell the voters before we conclude this interview?
Yeah, I would say one reason I'm running is because one of the biggest reasons actually is because I think we deserve more representation of our actual district. I think currently, in my estimation, that kind of gets looked over. The issues that are focused on are maybe more of a national scale. And while they do affect us, that position obviously has specific powers and they can do specific things to make change. And I think we need to bring it back to a community level, a county level, a district level of what do we need here. Because again, what we need here is going to be completely different than what, someone in Eastern Oregon may need, or in Northwest Oregon, right? So how can we focus on our issues at hand that we're struggling with? And again, that's why I think, bringing back tax dollars, certain people disagree with that, but I'm a taxpayer, and I think it's important to bring those back for especially infrastructure projects, right? Things that can spur development, whether that's residential or commercial. Those are all things that make the economy go around. So that's something I'm super passionate about. But again, like I said, just representing this district, focusing on this district, being available for this district. And like I said, I like to be in the community as much as I can. And that's kind of what I've built my business on, and everything I do now is just as much as I can be involved in the community. So really bringing that focus back to this district, what we need, and how we can make this a place that people want to move to, that makes it, the most business friendly in the state of Oregon, if possible. More housing availability for people to move here and afford things. So, and safer.
All right. Well, thank you very much for your time. That will basically conclude our interview, and we appreciate your being here.
Yeah, thank you. That was easy. I hope I did good.
Yes. Okay, so I have to stop.
Well, this will